When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello guys, welcome back to the Grease Comics YouTube channel, and today's video is going to be inspired by you guys. So I did a poll last week, and I basically asked, what did you guys want to see? And it was between, like, Rhaegar being a villain, it was about the first Blackfire Rebellion, like, who was right, or who should have been king between Daemon and Daeron. And also, there was a joke video in there that got a little too many a little too many votes, in my opinion. There was a Song of Ice and Fire Smash and Pass one in there. For you guys that don't know what that is, it's basically like, who would I sleep with in A Song of Ice and Fire? Because some of y'all are just horny all the time. And then there was another one in there that was a patch face character analysis, which some of you also thought was a joke. I was basically going to, if we did that video, it was going to be like a complete character analysis, like his origins, breaking down all of his prophecies / lines. But this is the video that ended up winning. So again, if you guys want to have any sway in the kind of type of videos I do, consider subscribing, and you'll see the community post. You'll be able to vote in those as well. So let's get into Rhaegar. Now, Rhaegar Targaryen is a very interesting character because we don't fully understand his motives yet. There's just some things in Rhaegar's Rebellion we don't know. So a lot of this could be speculation. A lot of this is just going to be looking at his actions, who he was as a person. So let's look at Rhaegar and maybe why he was a villain. So Rhaegar is this person that looks at prophecy and he lets it drive him, and he almost has this ideology of, okay, I can do things now that maybe aren't great, but hey, the end conclusion is what we're working towards. So if, okay, I go and cheat on my wife Elia and go sleep with Lyanna but get her pregnant, but her kid ends up helping save the world, am I really wrong? And the idea here is, think about how many thousands of people die in the process. Like, yes, the Mad King, don't get me wrong, is the person that more or less is responsible for Robert's Rebellion, because if the Targaryens were much more competent at this point, like, say the Mad King was just a normal guy, he was a decent ruler, he saw what Rhaegar was doing and was like, okay, dude, stop, and then fixes all the relationships, there wouldn't be this tension growing by all of these different sides at the moment. And Rhaegar is kind of the person that, like, basically just kickstarts it. He, like, takes all this tension that's been building this entire time and is just the one to start the war. It's kind of like World War I, where it's like the main players are, actually, like, Germany, Britain, France, Russia. Like, those are your main players, but they weren't the ones that actually fired the shot that started World War I. So that's kind of what Rhaegar is involved in here. And it's interesting because Rhaegar is a vastly controversial character in the community, right? And when you look at other things, right, like moral complexities, cheating on your wife, not good at all. And then having a kid with said wife or with said woman, who knows, they might have been married, they might not have, maybe Rhaegar got annulled to Elia like we saw in the show, we don't know, again, speculation. And then to think, okay, he was expecting Elia to then accept this child as being like the third head of the Targaryen, like Dragon Sigil, basically. It's a lot of moral issues here because this is kind of villain behavior where it's like you don't care who you hurt, you don't care who dies in the process, as long as you get the outcome that you think justifies the means. And that is a very villain-esque type of mindset, in my opinion, especially for certain things. But let's also look at maybe the flip side of that for Rhaegar. Rhaegar, and again, there is context built into this now. There is this idea that House of the Dragon has presented that House Targaryen, with the dagger or knife that Arya uses to kill the Night King, there is this idea that the Targaryens knew of the threat of the others, and they had this idea that the Targaryens had to be on the throne. So maybe that this is one of the reasons why Rhaegar was so sure that they would be able to take out the Loyalists, right? There's this quote we get with Jaime and Rhaegar where Rhaegar is basically like, things are going to be different when I come back. Like, there was nothing in his mind when talking to Jaime that they were going to lose. Now, maybe this is kind of like a boxer mentality. So, like, when you're a boxer, right? The most successful boxers, you can't have there be any part of your mentality that says, what if you lose? Or what if we lose? Or if you do, it drives you to not lose, right? You have to be completely sure in yourself that you are going to defeat the other person. You know, knock them out, beat them, whatever, by points. And maybe that's why Rhaegar says what he says to Jaime, is because he has to have that attitude. If he goes in being, having this doubt, being scared, right, of Robert, then it's going to affect the people that follow him. So maybe that's part of it. And again, Rhaegar as a character, the way we are going to be able to view him completely will be based off the end of the show. Because if the end of the show comes and Rhaegar was right? Like Lyanna and again, I'm basing this off of Rhaegar and Lyanna are Jon's parents. So if you have a different approach to that, say you think Ned and Ashara are Jon's parents, you will have a vastly different approach to this than I do. So again, I want to make sure you guys know I'm coming at it from a Rhaegar and Lyanna are Jon's parents. If Jon is this Azor Ahai type character, Jon is this person that alongside of Dany and alongside of, say, like young Griff or Tyrion or something like that, do end up defeating the others, then we view Rhaegar and go, okay, Rhaegar was on the right track. If Rhaegar had not slept with Lyanna, would it have gone differently? Right? So there is that idea, but then this is the slippery road we lead down to of people interpreting prophecy. It's something that I really love that like Star Wars does with the prequels, where Anakin is supposed to be this person that's prophesized as the person to bring down the Sith, when in reality it's to bring balance to the Force. And the Jedi don't really understand that, and so the prophecy kind of gets mixed up. Maybe that's kind of what Rhaegar is doing, right? Where Rhaegar is seeing, okay, that I have to do this, I am the prophesized person, and my children will carry that on. When in reality, the prophecy that we get with this dagger, say that is canon, is just that the Targaryens need to be on the throne, and they will be able to defeat the others. Rhaegar is simultaneously responsible for House Targaryen losing power and not being on the throne and letting the other threat get to where it is, right? If the Targaryens had ruled better, say Rhaegar had just taken the throne from the Mad King, that's what I think most people would have, that would have been the best case scenario, I think, for a lot of people. And he ruled justly, he ruled well, and he passed that on to young Griff, if that is who that character is, or Aegon, his son. Well, would the kingdoms have been united? Would there have been a chance that we would have seen some other civil war? And when this other threat comes over and this knowledge has been passed down that, hey, we've had this prophecy that the others are going to come over, and there's this threat in the north, hey, we should figure this out and we should defeat it once we start hearing reports of that. So you see how it's a really difficult way we have to analyze Rhaegar without knowing the end part of his tale. His tale is not over. He may be dead, but his legacy is still very much a big factor in the story, and we don't know if his impact is going to be good or bad. And I think when we look at him as a character, I think he's just a very morally gray person. He is this person that a lot of people view very positively. He was very attractive. He could play instruments very well. He was a very competent swordsman. He was, on the face value of it, a great prince, but he was a much deeper and more complex character where other things were driving him, right? There's even this idea that Rhaegar early on in his life wasn't a person that enjoyed swordsman, or he never really enjoyed it really in his entire life, but he did it to do it for a reason. And maybe it's because eventually it gets passed down to him, maybe from the Mad King, maybe somebody else. that, hey, you know, you may be destined to face the others, and you're gonna have to be a competent swordsman. You can't just read all day and just play instruments and be, I don't know, some edgy guy, you know. So I think when we take a look at Rhaegar, I think him as a person, he was more of a villain than he was a hero. But when we look at what he does and how that impacts the rest of the story, maybe we could see why he did all these things. It could be a Maegor situation where Maegor as a character inherently, his ideology is very similar to Rhaegar, where what do I do to get what I want to happen, right? So what happens during that point? I want to get rid of the faith. Well, I have to be extremely cruel. I have to be strict on them, something my brother was very different on. And yes, that paints Maegor in a very morally bad outline because of how cruel he is to them, but also it's what needed to be done. So it's an interesting idea when we look at Rhaegar as a person. How will his legacy define him? And that's why I think you can't really answer this question yet. We can make speculations. We can maybe think about why he did some certain things. But we, for one, don't know everything that happened in Robert's Rebellion. Two, we don't know how the story is going to play out. We don't know if Rhaegar having Jon with, you know, Lyanna is something that is huge. Like, what if that never happened? There's so many what ifs with Rhaegar that makes him an intriguing character, but I want you guys to let me know what you guys think about Rhaegar as a villain, as a hero. I don't think you can make him a hero. Like, it'd be a really tough sell for me if you said he was a hero. I think you can definitely lean towards him being a villain. He got thousands of innocent people killed, more or less. But does what happened justify the means of getting there? And that's what's going to be interesting about him in the future. But let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye, guys.